So after the huge success of Rayman 1, Ubisoft knew they had something on their hands. So after wordly acclaimed Rayman 1, well, it was kind of difficult to stretch the formula any farther. Welcome back everyone to the Raymathon, where I will be reviewing each main canon Rayman game from the beginning till the end. And you know what guys? This channel right here has been running for 2 years now. With that said, why don't we celebrate these 2 years of YouTube creation by reviewing a game that also has 2 in it? And well, today, well, as you saw, it is Rayman 2 The Great Escape. Now Rayman has always been something very close to my heart, as I said before, and Rayman 2 is probably the closest memories I have to any of the other Rayman game. I played the crap out of this game when I was younger, and I still do today. With that little bit of history, Rayman 2 was a complete 180-degree turn from the last game, at least team-wise. I'm just going to assume someone in the development team saw the orgasm face and was like, nope! How do they accomplish something like this? Well, totally new 3D environments, completely new design levels, bringing new and much darker storytelling, new characters, yet they were able to salvage the same gore gameplay from the last game. And I'm not kidding here when I say that this game is one of the most drastic changes I saw from a sequel. But if I have to say something good about these changes is that, well, they made me insane playing them. For one ballsy move by Ubisoft, this one sure as pays out. I haven't played this game in a long time, to be perfectly honest. But I gotta say, replaying Rayman 2 for this review, we can get it footage from a long time, right after fully playing Rayman 1, definitely made me thought of some of the changes that went around. However, 15 years later, can it still hold up to today's standards? All I can tell you is that with time, people seem to more and more acknowledge Rayman 2, and as far as I can see, most people try to include Rayman 2 in the top 50 again, best PS1 games of all time. However, this one seems to be more present, and is without the most acknowledged Rayman game in the franchise. Ladies and gentlemen, let us dive once more in the realm of Rayman with Rayman 2. And I think Ubisoft threw out the concept of lighthearted through the fucking window with this one. It's clear that they were going for something very different, and just the drastic change from the first game to the second is definitely shown since the very first cutscene. Since the very beginning of the game, the moment that you start the story, the world is instantly transferred to a really moody and depressing one. So the game starts off with Rayman being captured by pirates and every inhabitant on the planet being enslaved. Yeah, you heard me right, you start the game in prison. Luckily, the Great Fairy Fast sends you Globox, your best friend, to help you escape out of the prison and regain your ability to punch. How did he manage to lose the ability to punch to begin with is beyond my knowledge. Whatever, in no time you're able to escape out of prison and drop down for a fall that should clearly kill you. But hey, Shadow was able to survive far from the moon, so why should I complain? Afterwards, Rayman recovers from the fall and sees that Globox is nowhere to be found. Yet again, we'll see later on that Globox will be captured by the pirates. After little investigation, we see that the kids of Globox, yes, this ugly fucker has kids. Don't know how he got laid on that one. So that the pirates, led by Razorbeard, have captured yet again Globox. How in such a short amount of time? Again, I don't know. Then Rayman made this of his quest to recover Globox and Faith from the pirates and defeat Razorbeard. Anyway, along the journey, Rayman will find Bobs, and they inform us that the only way to recover Faye is to eliminate the pirate threat out of this world. How do you do that? Recover the 4 masks and find Pollucus. But more on this guy later. At this point, your main job is really to just recover the mask and awaken Pollucus to fight against the pirate because of his legendary abilities. Oh, and the pirates are also in search of the masks. Why?
I don't fucking know. And just like Faye said at the beginning of the game, because of the core of the planet split into 800 lumps, it's also your job to recover them back. At this point on, well, there's not much happening. Sure, Rayman's free Glowbox and Faye, but they don't mean much overall in the story. And sometimes we get cutscenes with Razorbead just being like, "Kill Rayman!" But we already know this, so the game really repeats itself at several times. Now, like I said, it seems pretty, well, simple, even though I say it was really dark. It's because the feeling and environments complement the dark elements the game was going for. Nothing much when it comes to pure story really embraced the darkness of the game. If you really want to get something moody out of it, well, most of it happens in character interaction, just the setting of the world itself. When it comes to complexity of the story, definitely a little more involved than Rayman 1, but not by much. When you actually get moody and dark stuff in the game is throughout very little character interactions. But then again, they don't add much to the story at all. In fact, every character exception of Rayman does a thing. Basically, Rayman is the only character that seemed to do anything in the story in general. Anyway, after you collected the fourth mask, you have now freed Polycus and... Wait, what? Of course. Why didn't I see this one coming? You know, this right here could have been an information very useful the very moment you saw me. Just for the fact that I knew what I was gonna do, and even then that you don't mean shit. In the end, the final struggle is to get aboard the prison ship and liberate all people, including Glowbox with Razorbead waiting you at the top of the ship. By the way, am I the only one thinking this ship is fucking huge? After one last shot, Razorbead goes down and the planet is at peace. For now. Okay, in the end, the story isn't that bad. It's very simple and does a good job explaining what's happening whilst adding the dark feel to it. And to be honest here, the selection of characters is far much more enjoyable than the last game. Everyone feels in a certain world that works very well with cute and funny dialogues, and the game somehow managed to keep a serious and dark aspect to it. Kinda like Sonic Adventure 2, you know, with Sonic being cocky, making jokes all stuff on Eggman, and just the feeling that, well, they explode the fucking moon. While some characters don't mean shit to anything in the plot like Clark and Razorbead right arm, I'm at least glad they are very well placed and don't get in my way too much. Plus, those characters are just so lovable with either their clumsiness or their one-sided attitude like Glowbox and Clark. And there's no way to deny that these guys are awesome. So yeah, I like the story. Just a bit too simple for my taste. Again, this game is brilliant when it comes to improving what was once a joyful adventure into this dark world. I really feel like this is a game from a completely different franchise with its new environments, colors, area, and atmosphere. Yet, they still keep the feeling of Rayman. What I mean by that is, because of the darker story, the development team had to compensate with darker elements in the game, including everything I just mentioned. But everything looks and feels like Rayman, you know, only with darker texture, darker colors. The only thing I could complain about is that this game doesn't follow the over-the-top application the first game gave us, and instead seems to focus more on strongholds and forest. Granted, that's not that big of a deal, and I'm not just as a fan of those environments as the others. But nothing feels different than before since most areas look similar. To me, the multiple temples like the water and ice one looks very similar to the fire and lava one, and so on and so forth. When it comes to graphics themselves, they're freaking gorgeous, man. Since everything changes to 3D, I expected the graphics and models to be downgraded. And my god, was I wrong. Everything reflects what you expect, and that's just freaking fantastic. The voice direction, however, is pretty awful. While in my personal experience of this game is in French with the delicious voice acting that is very nice, the English counterpart is awful. Seriously, just listen to some of these lines.
The pirates won't last long.
Rayman has the 4 masks and he is on the ship.
I'll be fine. Now go.
No, not the end. Glowbox bring good gift from Lee.
Lee the fairy?
While the voice acting is awful, the music sure compensates because it's amazing. probably my favorite soundtrack in the Rayman franchise. Why, you may ask? Well, it does a good job to not only being extremely catchy, but incredibly atmospheric and fit perfectly the areas and tone around you and immerse you into this world. If the game wants you to be paranoid in the Cave of Bad Dreams, the music's gonna let you know. If something is dangerous around you, the game will let you know. The music just captivates you and immerse you in the world. Plus, the world that is presented to you does a good job of not only putting you in the realm, but also puts you into the emptiness the world has become. At least as far as I can tell. And when this kind of presentation, there's no denying that the PlayStation was pushed to almost its limit with this one, with very nice visuals transferred to 3D from the first game. Like I said before, Rayman 2 is Rayman 1 but in 3D, which means you can still punch and jump like before but with 3D environments. And your helicopter move from the first game has now become a natural ability. And now in this game, it's no longer activated for a short period of time, but you can actually control it as you descend all the way down, and you don't have a limitation on how the helicopter works. And every ability gained from the first game are back, such as the grappling punch. The difference here is, because of the 3D changes in this game, I've never had a cheap placed enemy in my way. Enemies are always clearly visible from afar, and you always have a lot of room to breathe. And thankfully, you don't have to fight enemies on small platform anymore, and the knockback issue is completely gone. Although it doesn't mean much, since platforms are no longer, well, that big. Unfortunately, the focus of the game seems to be more involved with fighting and puzzle, which, while sounds disappointing at first, isn't that bad. I gotta say, from a gameplay perspective, changing the gameplay like this from the first to the sequel is kinda confusing admittedly. Sure, there are some levels that focus solely on platforming skills, but to be honest, I wish there was more level like that. Oh well. So since the focus isn't that much on platforming anymore, then how the others comes out? Well, for a combat part, it's pretty much, well, again, Rayman 1 and Rayman 2. I know it doesn't say much, so allow me to develop. Punching enemies is like Rayman 1, so there's no direct lock-on function, and your punches don't do nearly the amount of damage I wish it did. At least in this installment. In a 3D game, this isn't that big of a deal because, let's be honest, if your main attack had homing properties, that would simply be broken. But the same goes for lock-on on an enemy. So you cannot have direct homing properties with your punch, but you can actually lock on with the R2 button to be centered with the enemy, always have clear vision to where they are. But the lock on may screw you sometimes, so not only your vision is limited, but your main attack is limited by these functions, which is extremely noticeable when fighting ninjas, because they teleport all over the fucking place. Not to mention, you punches do jack shit against stronger variants pirates and their huge health bar. For example, there's an enemy in level 5. This guy health is humongous. Here's how the fight goes. He shoots his first volley of projectile, then he opens for counterattack. Hit him. Then he shoots second volley of projectile, then you need to hit him again. Repeat process until he dies. Granted, there's a power you get halfway through the adventure that charges your punch and do significantly more damage, and in some cases even one-shot some pirates. But in the beginning of the adventure, you might struggle keeping up a battle for so long. That's not to say this game's hard, because my god, this is easy. The real challenge comes in the platforming section of the game, and even those are easy. Enemy patterns are way too easy to predict and to react to. Want to know how to beat this game? Punch and run around in circles. Repeat princess until you win. The end. I think the problem here is that the game never gives more than one enemy at a time. Well, there's one exception to that rule in the Cave of Bad Dreams. But still, even in the last levels, the game never throw a bunch of pirates at you, which, to be honest, kinda confused me. Razorbeat sends out entire pirate ships to kill Rayman, but never deploy more than one pirates at a time to try and defeat him. The only exception of the rule with difficulty are the ninjas, but only because dodging their attacks can be hard because they attack right after they teleport and you can't charge your punch with these guys, which make the battle drag for far too long. Or maybe it's the fact that you always fight in a huge open space given all the space needed to avoid incoming attacks. For the puzzle part themselves, okay, they might give you a brain breeze at best. but I shouldn't complain too hard. I mean, kids are supposed to play this game. For the controls, well, that's a tough call. I was never a fan of using the D-pad in a 3D game. Thankfully, the PlayStation 3 and PS2 allows you the option to using the joystick, which is much needed. But despite this, Rayman just feels clunky and stiff. Circling around with this guy is almost possible in very small places, which is maybe why there's so much open space in this game. These problems are especially apparent during battle. Granted, this is a PS1, so I can forgive. And the jumps really carry the momentum of Rayman itself, so the speed and width of the character is there, and that's pretty cool. Like I mentioned earlier, the world is divided in a map just like Rayman 1, so you shouldn't really lose yourself. And this time the map itself feels more alive, so that's pretty straightforward. New levels include Marathon. In some occasion, and by that I mean 2 times, Fate will challenge you to do a race where you can collect extra limbs and refill your entire energy. You see, there's no such thing as live in Rayman 2. You see this? This is your health bar. This also acts as your life counter, so every time you get it, it's like you just lose a chance at the platforming sections. What happens when you die? Well, you restart at the beginning of the stages. So the punishment isn't too bad, besides your health is so huge, and to help replenish your health is there a bunch of red lumps scattered around each level. Again, this is maybe another reason why this game is so easy. There's no sense of weakness, and where the sense is present is quickly thrown away because the game is too forgiving with its health recovery. For fuck's sake, every time you defeat a pirate, they each drop at least 3 red lumps, which recover from far too much. But if you ever need more health across levels, well, there's wizards and dinosaurs for that. Wait, what? Yes, there are slaves scattered across the level in little cages that you can break. Each of them, either it's a wizard or a dinosaur, can give you a little boost to your health. So it's always a good thing to look behind stuff to encourage exploration. And I like Rayman 2 in his level design for doing something like this. So I haven't talked about looms yet, so might as well do it now. There's only 3 types of looms. The red one, like I explained earlier, which recover your health. The green ones, who are looms that were once the core of the planet, and the yellow ones that act like checkpoints. So grab them whenever you can. As for the bosses, again, it's a really tough call. I love them, I really do, but they are so easy. Maybe an exception to the last boss, but even then. Take the first boss for example. Okay, I know this is the first boss, but this guy only have 1 attack. The real challenge of this fight is to get the icicle spear to effectively kill him, but unless you get hit by this slow moving and easily dodgeable spear of ice, you won't lose any health ever. The rest of the bosses are alright, the second one being a ninja, the third one being a cat and mouse fight, the fourth one being against Clark, and the final fight just being way too long, but is without a doubt the most challenging fight so far. But with these limited bosses also means limited game. The game is very short for what it is. Since I played this game for ease, I decided to do a run without getting all the green limbs, and I can beat this game under 3 hours. 2 if I really want. Recording footage for this review took me around 3.5, so accordingly, if it's your first playthrough, it should take you something around 4 hours, maybe 5 at best. But the problem still remains. It's short. Too short, in fact. And the fun will be over before you know it. However, to compensate the length, the developers made what is my opinion one of the most pleasant platforming levels I have ever played. I may be the only one, but I love the design and how the levels are structured. The challenge is definitely lacking, but damn, I replay these levels constantly. I swear on my original save file I had well over 50 hours of playtime. I just feel like the teams did a fantastic job sending the world around you in an adventure you venture on. Combining this with the amazing presentation mentioned earlier, and you got a kick-ass platformer. Rayman 2 is something very close to my heart. Like I mentioned in Rayman 1, this game was probably one of my favorite games back then. As the game aged and as I age as well, I felt like there were more and more things lacking with the game. Of course, every game kinda lose their gold touch after a while, but kinda like Sonic Adventure 2 to be honest. While it was golden back then, the more you play it, and the more time you pass on it, the more you realize about other stuff. The game in itself is still very entertaining, but as much as I replay the story elements of this game, the more I begin to notice the little thingies and plot holes in there. Rayman 2 still is very entertaining the way it's presented. The story is still very entertaining for everyone, even though an older person. Even though you might find the plot holes kind of annoying, you can get over it. And the presentation is just absolutely mind-blowing.
This is really a classic when it comes to PS1 to see how much dedicated the fan is, at least according to the fan base. While this game didn't sell as nearly the amount of copies as Rayman 1, it's still really interesting to see how much the sequel changed.
Rayman 2 was a refreshing transition 3D from the original game and fixes the problem I had with the first game. In the same time, Rayman 2 was a bit ambitious with its new concept and created flaws. Granted, those flaws means nothing compared to the enjoyment you'll get out of this game. With its simple yet so much more involved storyline, the fantastic presentation, the darker tone in the game, the very funny dialogue, and a simple yet promising gameplay like the first game.
Does it still hold up? It's a really hard call on this one. I gotta say yes, because this is something very general that anybody can get into. It's a really cheesy and platform adventure type game, so if you're that kind of stuff and you just want to have an easy night, then you can go and grab a copy of Rayman 2. This will do a damn fine job for you. While I do prefer playing on my own time on other platformers like Sonic and Mario, there's no denying Rayman 2 holds its own very well. While not as critically acclaimed as the last game nor did it sell as many copies, I might be entirely wrong on this one, Rayman 2 was really solid, and with this installment was able to report multiple times on the 3DS, I believe on Steam, and on the console, the PC. There's so much support for this game, it's unbelievable. Well, the core roots this game in store for the rest of the franchise, well, Ubisoft saw the potential, and they decided to move on Rayman on the next gen. So, I'll see you guys next time with Rayman 3. Hold them happy.